Not long ago, there was this video trending of a flooded area and a child in a sufuria.
Oof.
Like
I
the
didn't come
sufuria
across
was
that.
floating on water and the child was in it. And things like that actually make you wonder, what do you think happened to that child? What do you think the mother went through?
The mother was not
Because
there?
the child is floating on the sufuria.
Oh. One great poet, my good friend, is also an activist. He said, anything that's about us and not for us. Yeah, anything that's about us but does not involve us is not for us.
True. Welcome to Life as a Young Activist, where we speak from the front lines, not the sidelines. This is not just a podcast, it is a call to courage, a space rooted in care and collective power. Every moment starts with a story, and every story starts with a person refusing to remain silent. We are bold because we have to be, intentional because survival demands strategy, unstoppable because we've come too far to stop now. We hold space for joy and grief, the vision and struggle that shape our organizing. This is a space for stories, raw, unfiltered, and true, rooted in resistance. From the global south to wherever youths are rising up into the occasion, we bring you truth on our terms. Because our lives are the movement and we are just getting started. So plug in, tune in, lean close. This is Life as a Young Activist podcast. I will be your host, Feli.
And I'm your host, Bey.
So, this is gonna be our introductory episode, just letting you know what you're all about and what to expect from us. So, the first question will be, why this podcast? Why Life as a Young Activist, and why is it most important now?
For a very long time, activism has been a lone journey, and many activists would attest that there's more to it than just sounding bold and ambitious. And the world, the world hasn't always welcomed change, and the activism has also often come out as, taking the shape of the revolutionary kind. However, many activists give up on their advocacy journey within the first 2 years, and this is often because the journey becomes much harder than they expected, more elusive due to lack of guidance, and most importantly, because of mental health struggles and the trauma uh, that come from the experiences, the first-hand experiences in these spaces. So I think Life as a Young Activist comes in and is founded on for these very reasons, because it aims to create a community for young activists to where they could come and talk about their stories, to tell about their experiences, learn, contribute to each other's journey. And this podcast does just that by bringing them in, the ones from the front lines and from the grassroots.
Okay. So about the inspiration, what inspired the name and the tagline? So our tagline is bold, intentional, and unstoppable.
All the intentional and unstoppable. That's really how this came about. We had to look always, right? And if you look at the logo itself, it's something, it kind of embodies some really cool colors, and that is black, white, and yellow. So when we talk about being bold, intentional, and unstoppable, I think it kind of, these are some of the traits that many activists have out there. Because as an activist, you have to know that yes, you might be stepping into places that you're not welcomed, but you know that it is necessary for you to be there. So that is bold. And when you step there, that is bold, and you have to be intentional about stepping where you are stepping in. And once you get into that room, obviously, you should be unstoppable, because whatever the cause that took you in there was something that you know that could change the trajectory of what you believe in. And I think that is why the tagline really, really stands out, because being bold, intentional, and at the end of the day, you use those two to fuel your unstoppability. Yeah. How about you? What do you think?
I don't know. I think for me, I was more for bold and apologetic and unstoppable because that is who I am. So for
Yeah.
everyone who knows me, they know that I'm a very bold person,
Uh-huh.
extremely bold
Uh-huh.
and pretty unstoppable, and mostly apologetically me. So for me, this podcast, at first we had to struggle between life as a young activist and life of a young activist.
I remember that.
And just trying to ensure that it was more about a collective than one person, like creating a community of young activists instead of focusing on one person's journey, because you can't really address a person's journey in an episode. So just having that collective, as hence the name Life as a Young Activist. But for the tagline, I think for the tagline, it just reflects me, the people in this podcast, the people who are behind it. And I hope that you guys are also bold, intentional, and unstoppable, or that after listening to this podcast a few episodes or a number of times, you'll get there.
Of course, that is the intent. That is the goal. And maybe you could tell us what kind of stories are we hoping to tell, and where are we centering?
I think the first questions when you say that you're hosting a podcast and someone wants to come, they're like, what do I need? What should I what should I have ready for this podcast? And I usually say that all we need is just you. We just want your story. We just want you the way you are. This space is not shaped by a preformed image. It's just for you to step in and be yourself. You're trying to bring that authenticity.
Amazing.
And this is focusing on young activists from all over: women, men, refugees, marginalized communities, queer, all these controversial issues. As long as you're stepping up to the occasion and trying to bring change in your community as a young person, feel free to interact with this, because the content is made just for you.
Well, you brought up the concept of these different advocacy spaces. How do you think this podcast would nurture those different spaces? Because you just mentioned we have the, gender, refugees, climate, and many more. How will this podcast do that?
I think what we're trying to do is just bring voices together, amplifying what you do as a person. Just trying to amplify what you do as a person, tell your story, and just give you a sense of community, someone who understands you, someone who you can learn from, someone who you can teach, someone who you can hold their hand through this whole advocacy thing. So it's just having that community to be able to improve yourself and those around you, and just having that sense of a bigger picture. There's this very nice spoken word that I usually love
Refer to. Tell us about it.
by Sarah Kay.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about the things we build. So laying bricks, building a wall, or creating a sanctuary. So you're asking three different people doing the same thing. They were building a wall. So the first person said that he was just laying bricks. The second one said he was building a wall. And the third one said that he was creating a sanctuary. So we usually struggle sometimes with just laying bricks without seeing even the slightly bigger picture.
Exactly.
Sometimes we see the slightly bigger picture, and sometimes we see the vision, like what we're trying to create long term. At the end of all this, what do we expect this to be? So this is supposed to be more of like a sanctuary for young activists, like having that community space where you can come and feel
That is
like,
really, really cool. A sanctuary for the young activists. Oof, I've never thought about that. Maybe now we could get to talk about, ever since I met you 2 months ago. No,
you met
3 months.
way longer than that. It's almost 4 or 5. I don't know.
Right, and the first time we had this conversation, it was just random. It was a random evening at a library, in a podcast training. We never really saw this coming, but maybe you could tell us, part of your story, what has been the hardest and part of this journey and establishing this so far, or something that you would say is beautiful as well.
I think the hardest part of being a young activist is support. And I think that is what I referred to when I first talked about this.
Yes.
So when I created my LinkedIn account, I didn't know what to post there. So I was like, I'm really struggling as a young activist, and I want to do a series of articles just depicting my life as an activist. Hence, life of a young activist. So, life of a young activist. So, I was just thinking, like, documenting my daily my daily issues, whatever I study,
Yeah.
whatever I deal with in that day, the
Yeah.
struggle, because I'm also a mother, I'm a young activist, and I also have to survive Nairobi and stuff.
Exactly.
So that is what came. And I really struggled to find space, find a community in the activism world. So for me, what I want people to feel is that you're not alone and your struggles are not just yours to deal with. I would like people to feel safer, to feel like it's not a do or die
True.
kind of thing. As
True,
much
true.
as we are doing it for survival, because our survival depends on it, it's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
do or die.
Yes.
If you can't do it, someone can step up. What would you like our listeners to feel?
I think essentially for this podcast is because the framework is very simple. That is, we're bringing people who are experiencing the spaces, right? And I think the background for the establishment of this was you yourself said that you started writing articles of the life of a young activist, and you were pointing out things that were really challenging to a young activist's life. And here, yes, we have thousands, even if not millions, right, out there who are championing for different things, especially someone standing out for their own community, trying to solve a certain problem, trying to advocate for a change, for certain policies and everything. So this podcast technically would just essentially would just bring that person and make them feel heard. Right. So whatever that you really thought you didn't know, yes, you can know it because someone else who does the same thing that you're advocating for is on this podcast. And definitely you can get to learn from that. And a good thing about this is that we are creating a sense of community. The community that we are creating is that someone could reach out, of course, and leaving these questions up for the people who are going to come. So they themselves, even though someone is starting, you're just into this space, you don't even know what it is, but you just know a problem. That itself is enough to make you a change maker because it's in the name, a change maker. You want to create change maybe in your personal space and also in the in a society and also in your community. So what I would like people to feel in this podcast is to feel heard and seen, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What do you think?
I think I feel the same way, but I'm more of on support side and just
Amazing.
getting to have people who you can relate with.
Exactly.
I'm thinking we're talking a lot about communities. So what role do communities play in activism, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a good one.
For me, I think there's something I found very interesting,
Uh-huh.
which is Fred Hampton's speech, "Power where there's people."
Oh,
Power where there's people. A lot of time, people look down on activism because it's very loud, it's very radical, it's very bold, it's very out there.
yeah.
But I really love the concept of activism.
Yes.
I really love the concept of just speaking out and speaking up for yourself. People underestimate the power of people. People underestimate, like, you stand up and say that I want to see this happening, and the next person stand up and say the same thing. And like a collective of people, it usually catalyzes change in a way that is
It does.
very
It does.
interesting.
It
So
does.
when you talk about creating communities, I see this collective power. I see this space coming together and becoming more powerful, amplifying each other's voices. You say this, I say this, so the next person says this, and when they come together, it's like one very big, bold, strong voice.
True. True.
What do you think?
Well, community is everything in advocacy. Uh, Technically, you cannot do anything alone because who are you doing it for? You're doing it for the community. And if the community does not believe in the same thing that you do or you try to create for them, then it's sad to say that uh, most of your work will will not it won't go so far because the first people the first person you have to convince. Let me use a community in a one person perspective. So the first person you need to convince is your community. You have to convince your community of what you are actually what you want to advocate for. And again, I think community plays part in because it's only from the community can you get the stories from. So your activism, powerful activism, is rooted on stories. First-hand experience of stories. So you might be coming with your own story into these big spaces and talking about how you experience it. But now, if you talked about two or three more people from your own community, that will be powerful. Um, I like this framework in storytelling, and it's more of actually it's a really close art close to me most of the time, because I realize in activism you need to tell a story, because the story has a problem, it has a solution, and then it has the solution, and then it has a result. So when you identify the problem, our minds are inclined to solving problems. So when you talk and pose that problem in the beginning of the story that you're telling, of course someone would know, okay, then what happened, right? And when you get to the solution, or what happened after that problem, what was done about the problem, you also get, okay, and then what was the result? And when you see the result, now you leave the room to judge. Is the result good enough, or isn't it good enough? So I believe that community plays a huge part in one's personal activism. You need to get into that space, but before you get into that space, have stories from your community first, because they are the people who will support you when you fall back down.
I think talking about storytelling, I remember recently talking about storytelling in activism. And one of the things is that two things actually. One is that stories, um, lived experiences are not really reflected much in policy making, which is very, very sad.
Yeah, you're big on that.
And the second, I am big on that.
Yes.
I am big on that. And I think that I think that people who have an issue with activists are people who haven't actually lived through the operations that you're trying to speak about.
Yes.
They haven't like had that firsthand experience, like experienced it enough to want to speak out about
True.
it. But I think that lived experience should be centered more in when it comes to creating change, policies, and mitigation strategies. And the second thing is community stories being used without any benefits to them.
Yeah.
Like creating a narrative, a whole narrative on someone or on a community, and not getting to see that change get there is a very sad thing. You know, it's interesting that Africa is just known for poor people,
Yeah.
diseases, and pandemic.
True.
And there was so many millions that went into trying to change that. And most of it never actually got to us.
Most of it never actually happened.
Most of it never actually got to that child whose picture was used. Most of it never actually got to that community.
Yeah.
It is still happening. It is still happening right now. Like talking about maybe say crisis and disaster funds. Who do they really get to? As someone who has been to a disaster prone zone, do you think that money really gets there despite the pictures leaving your place?
Well, the reports are really striking. Um, are really striking. So I just a few months ago, I was having this conversation with one of our alumni organizations, right? So this was African Youth Action Network. Um, what they were doing, they mentioned something about what they were doing, and I thought that was really, really amazing. They were designing a playbook. So a playbook that would be used by the NGOs, and this playbook would directly reflect the stories from the marginalized community. So it will be them speaking, and now it will be more of because it's a refugee-led organization. So their work will be their research will be refugee-led, and whatever reports, whatever findings they get there, methodologies, and also the recommendations they put on the report will be used by this organization. So I thought that was really, really amazing. And we are kind of thinking about what we can do also about the refugee playbook in a way that when you're coming into the refugee context, what should you do? You'll get access to what that already exists and the information that already exists, not the information that you know, and you're going to build on that. Because most of the research that we're talking about nowadays are not done by us. They're not,
Or even for us?
of course, right? Uh, yeah. So it's really, really, really concerning, because activism also means that you need to bring the voices from the marginalized communities. One great poet, my good friend, is also an activist. He said, anything that's about us and not for us. Yeah, anything that's about us but does not involve us is not for us.
True.
So that I found that was really 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 big, and it was really powerful in a way that it tells the other people that what if you're coming to talk to us, and if you're going to come and talk about us, of course, and whatever you're doing is not for us, then uh, you know there's no point of having this conversation. And I think it's really important to use storytelling in most of these settings, because that's when change could really happen, because it's inspired by something. It's not just from a theoretical concept of a few challenges from here and there, and not really hearing how those challenges have affected lives and how people are struggling. I mean, the other day you wrote, you're actually really good on LinkedIn, by the way. You, yes, you talked about the climate justice, and one of the times that you mentioned how these things would affect the families. A mother getting to walk 5 kilometers just to get food or to get water, and a child having to miss school. And maybe you could tell us more about that, and maybe you can now connect it with how storytelling is important, because if they could hear the story of that mother, of that young girl who gets to miss the school because of these climate injustices.
I think I think what I think people should really center community and people in their activism personally. Not long ago there was this video trending of a flooded area and a child in a sufuria.
Oof.
Like
I did
the
not come
sufuria
across
was
that.
floating on water and the child was in it. And things like that actually make you wonder, what do you think happened to that child? What do you think the mother went through?
The mother was not
Because
there?
the child is floating on the sufuria.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, I don't know. When we talk about climate crisis, I think we could have a very, very longer episode. So
True, true, true.
I'm just gonna say that people should actually center the person in the crisis. Because as I keep saying, there are so many examples of mitigation efforts that have been done in different communities and actually haven't served the people. Not very long ago, actually, it's a while ago, there was a project in South Africa that created a playground. So the playground, they dug some boreholes and then created a playground. So when the kids are playing, it pumps water. Creative, right?
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. So
It is.
it's creating leisure and solving a problem for community access to water. But what if the children are tired of playing?
Oh, that's the question.
So, like having all this thought out, the well being of these kids, are there any options? Are there any like different needs that you want to have? Also, the same, like just on the same water access issue, there was another project that they came to communities, they created accessible water pumps to prevent women from going like 10 kilometers to look for water. And almost every month they had to come do repairs because people kept breaking the pumps.
Yeah.
And after a long while, when they got to ask, like, why do you guys break this pump? They were told that when we go to fetch water, it's the only time we get to have a conjugal, I don't like calling it rights. I don't want to say have sex because
Okay.
it's the only time we get intimate.
Mm,
So these people were living in overcrowded houses with kids and can't get intimate in the house. So when they go for water, they find some privacy in the bushes and get intimate. So bringing these boreholes here actually were hindering the mating rituals. So like getting to hear what is a priority, what is a problem, what is a priority, and getting to understand what is the need, what needs to change right now at this moment, what is the need. I also keep telling you that people just react theoretically. Okay, I can say a lot on this, but let's move on. What has
sure.
been the most beautiful part about this for you?
Um, okay, the most beautiful part of this journey is getting to grow with a community, growing with, you know. So I've met you guys, I've met a lot of
Oh,
people,
yeah.
of course, and
Say
uh,
me again, say me.
stop. So I've met you guys, I've met a lot of great people and who are part of this team. And of course, this is just the beginning. We're going to have a lot of people coming in, the guests, and from all these different places. As a co-host, I think I'm very lucky because I'm going to be sitting here listening to the stories of these other people, and of course, these moments, these stories will inspire my moments of silence in which I'll get to really ask myself questions. This person did this, and they solved this problem with this, and oh, how did I do that? And how could I do that? And how can I do it the way they did? And how can I, inspire others to do the same? So I think the most beautiful part of this journey is that it's just an opportunity for a lifelong learning experience, right? And I haven't experienced any, I wouldn't say anything about the hardest part. Um, but maybe we can talk about that in the future because there are a few things that might happen. But not to ruin the beautiful moment. Let's just move it for there because, of course, there's going to be mishaps. There's going to be things happening. Maybe uh, the team and everything, and maybe what we hope for not getting into. Uh, Not reaching what we actually hope for. And again, if our audience right now choose to not receive whatever we're trying to do or don't welcome whatever we're trying to do, that will be one of the hardest parts. And because it will make this as meaningless and it will kill most of the things that we're trying to do. So it's good to actually really point that out because of course, as much as we have something in the future that we hope for, we have strategies and how we can accomplish them. We can also deny the things that might happen. And I think that being the hardest part could also, get our minds up to be alert in how we could better protect those and how we can, if yeah, maybe you tell me about what you think.
I think I choose to be unstoppable.
You choose to be unstoppable. Of course,
You guys better
it's
you guys better subscribe to this podcast because
okay.
I'm gonna cry. If whatever he's saying comes to happen, I'm gonna really cry.
Of course, it's in the tagline: bold, intentional, and unstoppable. Of course, if those are the core values, and those are the things they are going to lead every single episode for the next hundreds of episodes. So I think that's pretty much it. Right? That's pretty much the beautiful thing
So
in there.
just as we come to an end, what should the listeners expect from you in future episodes?
From me,
Okay, from the
from
podcast,
the
from
podcast,
you. Okay,
exactly.
they could also be expecting something from you, so you
Um,
never know.
well, expect to be inspired, and that's one thing. And expect to learn new things. Of course, the podcast is going to explore a wide and different topics, and maybe there might be spaces in which you're not in. Maybe you're in. You might be advocating for refugees, and we are here talking about gender justice and climate, and maybe something. Of course, they'll always have an intersection somewhere, right? But I think the most important thing is that you should expect to learn new things, and you should expect to be inspired. And most of the things, they're not just going to be. Uh, Most part of it will be also informal in a way that you just get to connect with the activist and learning their stories. It's not about what they do mostly, but it's what's keeping them up and what's fueling them inside every single day, waking up to really go write that article, publish it, offend some people, and at the end of the day, bring the desired change. So I think that's pretty much everything that you should be expecting from the podcast, unless Philly has something else.
I am more on the opposite side. People are
Oof.
way too formal for life.
Uh,
And I am
exactly.
more informal. So
Exactly.
you can expect vibrance. You can expect a little bit of fun, especially in my episodes, because
Oh, come on.
yeah.
Come on.
But also just expect to learn, expect to make a friend to get a friend in me, and to just I expect you on the podcast as well. So I also have expectations. I expect you on the podcast as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, definitely. We need you here. And by the way, we are going to link some of the documents down here. If you ever want to be a guest on the podcast, we would love to have you in the podcast. So there are going to be documents that we're going to be attaching on the description uh, below. And you feel free to reach out to us. We also have a community where you could join. We'll soon enough release a uh, mailing list in which you can join so you join the greater community. So it's all about keeping the activism within us, even if it's different, it's coming from different spaces, right? And we might be advocating for totally different things, but at the end of the day, what we're advocating for is the effectiveness or seeing the human rights being lived to their fullest or to to their desired sense and how they were implemented, you know. So you might be doing your own unique work, and definitely you are needed here to share your story as well. There are a lot of people out there, and I can't wait to learn. Maybe, yeah. What about you?
I am so excited to hear from you, to get feedback from you. So, this has been it for our introductory episode. So, remember to join the movement because activism isn't a single person journey. You can't create change in a silo. So, join us because our lives are the movement and we are just getting started. So, this has been Life as a Young Activist podcast. We are bold, intentional, and unstoppable. I've been your host, Feli.
And I am Bay. So join us next time and let's talk about life as a young activist because, hey, this story has a story. Thank you.
Follow us on Instagram, Life as a Young Activist, YouTube, Spotify, AfriPods, LinkedIn, Life as a Young Activist across all social media pages.
Take care.